Hey, I'm Chris Gates. I want to talk a little bit about how to use our hacker mindset and mindfulness to maximize our or your life experience. And this is recorded for AltSecCon in April 2024. Probably important is this is a slice of a workshop that I give, and there is a companion doc. It's here. There's a bit.ly link, or if you trust me, there's a QR code. But this is also 8 years of my life condensed into 45 minutes. So don't worry if you miss some stuff. That's why the doc is there. And I would love for anyone to reach out to me with questions. How to get a hold of me is in the doc and also on basically every slide left in the talk. Okay, so hey, I'm Chris Gates. I am currently the offensive security manager at Robinhood. I've been doing IT since 2003, hacking for money since 2008. Worked in a variety of different locations and verticals from US Army and doing cleared work up to lots of consulting. I was the first offensive security engineer at Facebook, now Meta. Uber, Cruise 100X, which is now it's called back to BitMEX, cryptocurrency exchange, and now at Robinhood. And my big flex on this slide is I got to talk at CERN. CERN, if you're not aware of it and you're into the conspiracy theories, is like they have the Large Hadron Collider. They smashed atoms there together. And that's where the Mandela effect started if you're down with weird stuff. And so the reason that we have Berenstein and Berenstain Bears is CERN. Now, why was I there? It wasn't just to go smash atoms. I was actually giving a talk in Switzerland at Insomnia Hack, and they asked me to come also give a talk there. And and it wasn't just a physicist. There's actually a large data center and internet point of presence uh, at this area, and so that's the reason that I was there. I was talking to a bunch of nerds, and then at the bottom is me on this journey of like putting this mindfulness stuff to work in my life. Um, and as I become a manager, it's allowed me to, all this mindfulness stuff has really allowed me to connect deeper with people on my team. Because if once I had some space for in my heart and in myself, it allowed me to let other people in. It allowed me to start to know them. And once you know someone, it's kind of a prerequisite to caring about somebody is you need to know them. So it's helped me respond to like assholes at work better. It's helped me not be the asshole at work at least a little bit more. I used to just I used to just get upset and fire off salty emails, letting that bomb explode, letting my manager have to deal with the fallout. And all this mindfulness stuff has really helped me in my life as well. Um, I also co-founded Nova Hackers, and I like to say that I'm a recovering angry, depressed guy, and I leave all my old tweets up so people can see that. And I also get reminded of that growth quite frequently from Facebook and Google Photos, as it shows me something from 6, 8, 10 years ago, and I can see how deeply unhappy I was. And I was deeply unhappy because I wasn't living my life for me. I was living my life for other people. And we're going to talk a lot about that in this deck. I also founded a company called The Sky Beckons. It's an energy healing and coaching practice. I lead Robinhood's Brain, Body, Heart Employee Resource Group. It's a mindfulness group where we talk about things like this. I bring in speakers to talk about these sorts of things. And also, like, been on a plant medicine journey for about, well, plant medicine probably like the last 4 or 5 years, starting pre-COVID. So I've done quite a bit of ayahuasca, quite a bit of San Pedro and peyote and mushrooms to help me deal with just some of the things that's been going on in my trauma in my childhood. And this has really helped me be more of, it's created some space for me to use these mindfulness things to do more in my life and to give more to others. So I'm a huge believer in them. There's a big asterisk there. Happy to talk about that, and I've talked about that in other talks. But plant medicine has been really helpful for me in my journey and getting out of my comfort zone and doing music and going to weird places and taking these substances. Been quite profound and transformative. I have an obligatory in front of the antimatter factory photo. I am a dad and I have 3 kids. I'm a twin dad. So I know a few things about competing requirements, distractions, and trying to be in balance of all the things that you have to do as an information security person, as a hacker, as a dad, as a husband, as an entrepreneur. I've been living that, I don't know, all my adult life. Also really into Halloween. Pretty into EDM. And then this is my kid was really into Marshmallow for a bit, so we got to meet Marshmallow. On the right is me in my favorite spot in Sedona, that is at Boynton Canyon. Sedona is a very spiritual place in the United States, out in Arizona. And then in the middle is this I made it moment. We're at DEF CON 32 now, and it was um when I was in the army, my mentor said, you will have made it when you speak at DEF CON or Black Hat. And so that became my goal. And a few years after I was out, I was able to meet this goal. So DEF CON 17, we're at 32. So that's about 15 years ago. I was able to make it. And it was simultaneously a huge moment and also a shitty moment because I hit my biggest goal in my mid 30s and it really turned into a now what scenario. And I'm going to talk about why that is a bit, but essentially, that was someone else's goal and it wasn't mine. And so when I achieved all of everyone else's goals, I still didn't feel complete. And it wasn't until many, many, many years later, after bouts with suicidal thoughts and depression, that I start to understand and start to figure out who I am and what life I needed to be living. So let's start with, are you going to take this engagement? Everything's in scope. The tools available. So whatever I've installed for you, can you add more stuff? You absolutely can, if you can get them installed. I'm going to give you some suggestions on the success criteria, but ultimately you decide if it's successful or not. And then the length of engagement is 0 to 80 years. Would you take it? Well, we all took it. It's called life. And so we want to start to think about, how do we maximize this experience? And it's actually not a little bit esoteric. It's super esoteric of like what this means. And so um, I recently read a book by Rick Rubin, who's like a famous music producer, called A Creative Act. And in that book, he talks about uppercase art and lowercase art, and uppercase life and lowercase life. And so what does that mean? So uppercase life is living the life you want versus the life that, they in quotes want, that they want, that everyone else wants. Creating uppercase art. So like, not consumer commodity stuff, but like, remember when you were a child and you made art and you made things just because you like it and you didn't actually care if other people liked it, you made it for you. Bringing more of that kind of energy into all aspects of your life. So if you're a musician or doing that, like capital in music, and then hacking, right? So like, remember those moments where I don't know, it's like 3 a.m. and you've been hacking away for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 hours. You forgot to eat. You're just in the zone and you're just really, really fucking stuff up. That's capital H hacking. When you're just like cranking out things because that's what you got to do to get a paycheck and you don't really like it and you're just checking the boxes, you might be getting in, but that's kind of lowercase hacking. And so a lot of this mindfulness stuff and a lot of what I want to encourage you to think about and embody today is uppercasing our life, our music, and hacking, right? And so how is this stuff hacker stuff, right? Like, how is this shit? How is mindfulness hacker shit? Well, we challenge and validate assumptions anytime we're doing security work. We're doing an assessment to make sure that everything, all the controls they put into place are working like they should. So I'm really just asking you to start to do the same thing you do 9 to 5 with the rest of the time in the day. So if you do it with computers, everyone in this audience is actually equipped to also do this with your life. And mindfulness is really intentionality with how we live our life. And are we living the life that we want intentionally, or are we living someone else's life because they have told us what to do? So I think most of us can relate to big, complex computer systems. We have them, we manage them, we've hacked them. You are one of the most complex systems that exist. You are your soul spacesuit. It's a complex system full of hardware, software, VLANs, complicated programs and routines, its own power management system. But thankfully, we're all hackers. We are trained to look for privilege escalation opportunities, memory leaks, faulty programming, things running as set UID, things that have insecure memory protections, and we can smash the stack or do whatever. So we might want to take the things that we do for the day job and start to apply them to make sure that this system, our system, is running as efficiently as we can, or as it should, right? Because this is arguably the most important system that exists. And so also we are in a hostile alien world, and so we need to learn how to optimize and maintain the spacesuit as optimally as we can. And there's no manual, right? And the manual for me, even if it existed, wouldn't be the same manual for every one of you that's listening or watching. So I want to share the insight that started the impetus for this talk, or at least the title for this talk. Hey, we're out hiking, and this was my lesson for today. So we're walking up this stream bed. There's not much water. This is usually full of water, and so we're just walking up to the trail. And I was having a real hard time because I didn't want to get my shoes wet. And then I fell in, and then they got wet. And it's just been a lot easier to now navigate the rest of this, not trying to keep my feet wet. So there's some sort of lesson in there is just get your feet wet, and then things get easier. Have a good one. Yes, I'm a little further along, and I would just say, I think the lesson's, fuck it, just get your feet wet from the beginning, and then you can take the easiest and most direct route to wherever you're trying to go. Have a good one. It seems like most of my life I've been afraid to fall in the water, but the more I've been willing to fall in the water, the more I've found that through my fear has been the more direct path to the things that I want. I've also learned if I have time to contemplate the fear, I have time to pack the contingencies. Have a good. Now, that hey, we're out hiking. Hacking the contingencies starts to be really important. How do we think of those disaster scenarios? We also are all very well trained at that as well. So the important bits here is like, so how do we start to maximize our life? What does that mean? How do we start to live life intentionally? So what's the most direct path? Where am I trying to go? How do I get my feet wet without being injured, maimed, or dying? What does that mean? What is the life equivalent of the rocks I was having to hop around on? Like I must have almost rolled my ankle about a dozen times trying to stay dry. And then once I was wet, I didn't have to hop from rock to rock. I just went the most direct path and I actually took 20, 30 minutes off the walk. How do I know that I'm even heading in the right direction? What's my compass needle? How do I analyze and deal with fear of fully living my life? Because when you start to live your life for you, a lot of people are going to start to tell you that you're doing it wrong. And we'll talk about that. How can mindfulness help me do the above and stay on track? And then, as I mentioned, capital L life, capital A art, capital M music. But ultimately, all this is like living intentionally for you and as the individual you, and not the you that your parents thought you should be or that everyone else thinks you should be. So everyone's got an image of you, but the most important image of you is your image of you. Hopefully that makes sense. So here's where we're going. We're going to talk about our operating system and our core programming. How do we change our programming, purpose and goal setting, dealing with fear and vulnerability. And then I really want you at the end of this to be comfortable saying, so what? All right, so let's talk about how things work underneath the hood, just like we would with any other app. So you are your programming. This should make sense to most of us here. Programs only do what they're programmed to do. So your initial programming is buried way deep down underneath tons of code, applications, trauma, data, all sorts of things that are running. But most of this was installed 0 to 7 years of age. Now, we can install new things, but ultimately we have this core operating system that's running. We really don't look at it too often unless we start doing some of this mindfulness work. And so who are our programmers? Your initial programmers are your parents, teachers, siblings, family, neighbors, the people in your neighborhood, where you live, what area of the world you lived in any religion, if you were involved with one, and what they programmed you with were your values, your beliefs, your self-worth, feelings of safety and love, feelings of success. What is working hard? What can you achieve as you and your background, right? Like I was always taught, I'm a poor kid from Arkansas, I'm not going to amount to much, right? So that got locked in really early, and it took me a long time to rewire and update that code to what I could actually achieve anything that I wanted to achieve. Right. And so mention beliefs. Beliefs are an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. But more importantly, it's number two. It's an energy saving shortcut in modeling and predicting the environment. The problem with these is we didn't create these. Like when you make a shortcut on your laptop, you're pretty sure it's going where you want it to go. But when you borrow someone else's and you're double clicking on things, you have no idea what's happening after you double click that. We might actually open the folder, but we may have opened a bunch of other things along the way. We essentially inherited like crazy Uncle Joe's shortcuts because we didn't create them. And most of us have never inspected or validate they do what they're supposed to do. And why would we care, right? Well, your beliefs hide behind your opinions about life, people, happiness. They shape your thoughts and therefore your life. Um, our beliefs ultimately influence everything around us in the world that we live. And a lot of times they unconsciously set an upper bound for us. So it kind of looks like this. Your thoughts equal the behaviors you take. The behaviors you take equal the reality that you experience. So it kind of starts to make you ask, well, are all beliefs true? Right. And of course not. They're not of course they're not. A good chunk of them are actually like bullshit rules or rules. And when those bullshit ones are called limiting beliefs, the right things like I'm not good enough, I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money. Something says I can't do a thing, I can't be my real self because I'll be judged, shunned, killed, fired, whatever. Like giving mindfulness talks at hacker conferences. And a good regex to identify these limiting beliefs is I can't or I shouldn't because. And whatever comes after that because, that's the limiting belief. That's the thing that we need to do our hacker thing on and really dig into that and start to ask, is that actually true? The same thing we do when we do assessments. Now, some common bullshit rules: hard work equals success, all people are inherently evil, the pursuit of money is inherently bad, um, there's only one path to success, or there's a fixed path to success. And this one is one that I've personally wrestled with my entire life. Buying things and having stuff makes you happy. As someone that has got the Range Rover sitting in the driveway, I can assure you that for me, um, it was quite fleeting. The satisfaction for that was quite fleeting, and I had it, I enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it, but it didn't make me happy. And all of these, you're probably going, wait, these aren't true. And they're not, right? That's the whole point. That's why they're bullshit rules. In fact, it was really hard to find pictures of bullshit rules because they're not true, right? I know tons of people who have really worked hard in their life. They didn't succeed at all because they had some sort of belief that they weren't good enough or that if they created something really good, someone would take it from them. And that's been my dad's. Is my dad is an incredibly talented and smart person and an inventor. And he's never completed any of these amazing inventions because he feels like if he did, someone would just steal it from him. Right. And so he has these world changing ideas half finished on workbenches in his house. And it's incredibly sad to see because he is ruled by these limiting beliefs and these rules. So as a hacker, we might want to know how to identify these. And in the companion doc is a few more ways to do that. But does it apply to everyone universally is one way to start to identify them. Did you take that rule on intentionally or was it programmed into you long ago? And what is the benefit of it? Is it bringing you up or is it bringing you down or holding you back? Right? And so I have found that a lot of times people think about rules and really beliefs as things that are hard to get rid of. That's core to who we are. But in actuality, beliefs are agreements or contracts that we made a long time ago. And it, in our life, if we had an agreement that was not serving us, that was like we were overpaying for the people that come clean the house, or we're overpaying for our internet service or whatever, you would renegotiate that contract or that agreement. And so I want you to think about if these are just agreements and contracts, you can be free to evaluate them just like you might have to in the day job of like reevaluating vendors. Let's frequently reevaluate our beliefs and rules and make sure they're actually working for us. Lots of better deals can be created if you decide to look at them. Now, Vishen Lakhani is the founder of Mind Valley. He wrote this book called Code of the Extraordinary Mind, where he brings up the topic of the concept of rules. And I said one of the keys to being a hacker is knowing what rules to follow and what rules to break. And outside the rules of physics and the rules of law, all other rules are open to questioning. It's really a healthy way to start to live our life. And so throughout this keynote, I'm going to give you some questions that I want you to ask. These are also in the companion doc, but one important one for that section is this programming or belief a good use of my energy? And if energy is like too weird for you, just substitute time or attention. Say, is this programming or belief a good use of my time? Is it a good use of my attention? Is it a good use of my life? And if it's not, it might be time to call that vendor up and renegotiate that contract or cancel it. And so next step would be, how do we start to change that programming? We need to start doing code reviews. We need to start an intercepting proxy so we can start to see what's happening. And we want to do that because we are always constantly reinforcing and reprogramming ourselves with our words, thought, beliefs, actions, and emotions. So if we don't do any inspection of that, we're just pulling in beliefs as code from some old repo that we didn't actually look and see what's going on there. We're just grabbing that AMI and kicking it off and hoping that it runs in the way that works for us. Where in reality, you want to start to like program your own yourself. You want to make sure that you have the libraries that work best for you and your spacesuit, and not the ones that worked for your parents or worked for somebody else. Because if you don't do that, someone else is in control of your supply chain. Now, that's not something that we would allow in our corporate environments. So why would we allow that for ourselves? And so it kind of ends up looking like this. You have thoughts and beliefs and feelings and emotions. Those influence your behavior. Your behavior equals the experiences and memories that you experience. We saw that a few slides ago. And when things are not going to your liking, we call those problems. We need to start to break these cycles and interject and inject into these cycles and find and replace in these cycles. We need an intercepting proxy. And so what I have found with my 8 years of working on this is you want to set an intercepting proxy in the thoughts and beliefs section, because feelings and emotions are chemicals that have already taken place and have been released in your brain. By the time that has happened, it's already happening. It can be really difficult to change some behavior once the emotions start flowing. When we have a little more time and go through thoughts and beliefs, that's a much better place to do that. And we might even be able to inspect these when we're not in the heat of the moment. Essentially, on the left side, heat of the moment. On the right side, we have a little bit of time to process and a little bit of time to do the react versus respond. So how do we actually do this? What is a intercepting proxy or doing code reviews for our spacesuit? Well, it's meditation and self-observation. We'll talk mostly about meditation today. So benefits of meditation: improved attention and focus, create space for new ideas and creativity, build a sense of compassion. Let's see, increase our emotional intelligence. That's always good. And then increased adaptability to change. Those are all true. Those are all book answers, and they're completely valid. Here's my thoughts on this. As someone that it took me over 40 years before I could meditate every day for 20 minutes, and I started trying to do that when I was 16 years old. Here's what I have found: it takes down the noise around you, because there's a lot of noise happening. There's a lot of things happening. How do we start to actually clear away that noise and get to just what's happening within us? It starts to increase the time for you to react or respond, and because we get trained to notice our thoughts coming in as you sit on the mat and you are trying to focus on one thing. When something else comes in, you go, oh yep, I see you. Okay, I'm not going to act on that, but I see you. Put that down, and we start over. Right? We start to notice how we speak to ourselves. How do we speak to others? And then then starts to allow you to peek into running code, programs, and the self-talk that you give to yourself, because we're constantly reprogramming ourselves. So Joe Dispenza is a doctor that is into all this metaphysics stuff, and he talks about the process of change requires you to become conscious of your unconscious self. We want to start to peek into those programs that are running. And then he says in another quote, meditation opens the door between the conscious and subconscious minds. We meditate, enter the operating system of the subconscious, where all of those unwanted habits and behaviors reside, and then we change them to more productive modes that support us in life. That sounds pretty good. We're patching programs to make them run better or to hack them up. So what does it start to look like is we have this old autopilot way on the left where we have thoughts, beliefs equal our life experiences. Like we might have a belief that people are dishonest, something bad will happen, and then our house gets robbed. Now, when we start to do some code reviews, we might say, well, actuality, not everyone is inherently evil. The majority of people that I've met in the totality of my life are honest and good people. Um, sometimes bad things do happen to me, but doesn't happen every day. And in fact, some of the worst things that's happened to me ended up being the best thing that has happened to me. We can talk about that sometime if you want. And then, yeah, sometimes my house has been robbed and it's been robbed twice and I've been mugged. And that doesn't mean that like everyone is a bad person. And you start to say, well, I don't actually want to live that. When you start to say, I think that, but I don't want to live that way anymore, what we start to do is we start to insert new thoughts. We have those new life experiences when we set that intercepting proxy and start to change what we think or how we behave. That equals a new life experience, right? Because we're going to interact with our environment differently. We're going to interact with people differently. Enough time of that, we start to have a new belief that anchors in, and we start to have automatic new thoughts and automatic new life experiences. And the cycle continues, right? So it all starts with inspecting and finding out what's not working for us and what we want to change. So it begins to kind of look like this, right? You may have a family history of saying, hey, you're stupid, you're not good enough. And then we want to change that to I love you. And this actually happened in my life. My dad was a spanker. I'm sure his dad was a spanker. I've heard some significant stories of more than spanking, but my dad had the big leather belt. Now I didn't have a belt, but as when I was a new parent, I did spank people, and that was just my programming. That's just how I was brought up. That's what you do when you're frustrated with a child, is you spank them to get compliance, right? And then one day I spanked one of my twins, and I got to see the look of betrayal in his eyes, and that change, instantaneous change of the last thing that little kid thought I was going to do was hurt him, and I did. And probably one of the toughest moments I've had as a dad was losing that trust in that child and watching it evaporate in real time. It was really at that point that I decided I wanted to start making some changes in my life, and had another piece of this journey of like figuring out how to do that, because I just found myself doing it. That's just what you do, right? And I started to use these things that I just talked about in order to find what was triggering me, to start to create some space so I could find myself getting upset and behaving and reacting differently and responding differently to things that I didn't like them doing. And so now we don't have a culture of spanking in my home, and I really hope that my kids don't have that culture when they become parents. But all of this was just finding and replacing those beliefs and those thoughts. All right, so some common programs we might want to inspect or change. I'm not a creative, so like who here feels they're an artist? This one hits me. I never felt like I was an artist, but when you read The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, he talks about you are the artist of your life. You are here to create capital A art, right? Um, Most people don't know what they want. So when you start to live your life for the approval of others, it's really the surest way to satisfaction. They might mean well, but they don't know anything about your personal journey. So they might be able to give you some direction, but the person that can give you the best idea of are you on the right track is you. If you start to think about what that is, and I will get into that. So here's a clip by Rick Rubin that talks about making art.
Do you ever face the inner critic of, well, what if other people don't like this?
No, I don't consider them at all.
Really?
Yeah, something I say in the book is that the audience comes last. And I believe that. I'm not making it for them. I'm making it for me. And it turns out that when you make something truly for yourself, you're doing the best thing you possibly can for the audience. So much of why If you go to the movies, so many big movies just not good. It's because they're not being made by a person who cares about it. They're being made by people who are trying to make something that they think someone else is going to like. And that's not how art works. Art doesn't, that's something else. It's not art. That's commerce.
Right. I want to make real things. Once I realized I wasn't making real things, I was making commerce. I began to look and start to figure out, how do I make real things?
Do you ever face the
Right. Another one we see is, I'm afraid. I see this in coaching. I'm afraid of a thing, right? It doesn't matter. There's a million things to be afraid of. Well, fear is a prerequisite to courage. Any significant change in your life is going to bring about fear. And so one way I have found that helps to think about this is the concept of a one-way versus two-way door. This is Jeff Bezos has made this fun. I know he sucks, boo, but he has the concept of one-way, two-way door. And a two-way door means you can walk through the door, you can see what's on the other side of it, and if you don't like it, you can go back through the door. There might be like a little bit of a monetary hit or some time lost, but you can go back through. One-way doors are just that. Once that door closes, you're not going back through it. So we need to like understand if a decision or a change or a thing we want to do is a one-way or two-way door, and then threat model appropriately. We also want to ask, so what? So what? And start to just, I don't know, catastrophize, threat model. What's actually the worst that could happen? And then really, what is the likelihood of that happening? Because, and also like knowing where you were trying to go and why. So you might be more inclined to push through something scary, if there's a good reason, right? So if it's good for you and there's a reason for it, you might be inclined to just try a few more things. Another one I get is, I can't or I shouldn't, and we talked about this. Those are some limiting belief or rule that's telling you not to. But rules are arbitrary limitations. They also lead us to averageness, creating lowercase art and lowercase life. And we might want to think that we want our life to be exceptional. And to do that, less rules, right? As soon as a norm is established, creatives should do their best to not follow it, to ignore it. And hackers ignore norms all the time. That's literally how we find bugs, is assuming that thing is not going to work, or ignoring the norm and just trying it and saying so what. That's how we find our bugs. That's how we do what we do. That's why we're good at what we do. And then holding every rule as breakable is really a healthy way to live as a creative or hacker. Just saying so what. So, you know, so what if I don't follow this cultural norm? So what if I get laughed at? These people don't even know me. So what happens? What does it matter if I fail? So the question that's related to that section is this thought, behavior, action a good use of my energy? Is it helping me go where I want to go? So how do we know where do I want to go? That's a valid next question. Where are we going on this journey? All right, so we want to start to understand our purpose, because if you understand your purpose, it will naturally lead you to happiness. But knowing who you are is kind of a prerequisite. So first set of tools start to help answer the who am I question. You have this bottom set that start to answer the where am I going questions. And that can start to put together a path, because if you want to go somewhere, you need a destination and you need a starting point. So Dharma archetypes can help you answer the who am I. Now, we are not one of these. We are all of these, but you'll have a primary one at any point in time, and then you naturally move through these during your life. Right now, I'm really into my researcher phase, and then what I do with that knowledge moves around. Like, researchers love to know how things work. Most of us probably like to know how things work. And then what we do with that is a little different. So today, I am teacher and entertainer. Other days, I might be warrior or entrepreneur. Other days, I might be visionary or activist with that information. So it just kind of depends. The concept now, to answer one of the tools to answer where am I going is ikigai. It is the Japanese concept that means reason for being. Iki means life. Gai describes value or worth. So your ikigai is your reason for being, and is the intersection of what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can be paid for. When you start to like analyze these and start to write these things down, it starts to give you an idea of where you might want to go in your life. Another really useful tool, and this is one that I use with everyone that I manage, is the three most important questions. Now, before we talk about that, it's important to think about means goals versus ends goals. So means goals are the things that they told you needed to do to be happy or successful, like speaking at DEF CON or getting a certain amount of money. Ends goals are the actual things you need to, that you as a person need to do to be happy and successful. And those are going to be different for every single person. Right. So some examples: getting a certain degree in school, making a certain amount of money, getting a certain job, certain title, purchasing a nice car, house. Did all of those. The thing about means goals is that the satisfaction from them is temporary. All we do is move the goalposts. So as soon as I got senior manager, I started looking to be, how do I become a director? As soon as I made $100,000 a year, I started for looking, how do I make $200,000 a year? And each time you hit one of those mile markets and you go, I'm not satisfied. I'm not happy. You go, what do I do next? Well, the reason you run into what do I do next is because they're not in their means goals. They're not ends goals. So ends goals are the result of being a human. They're about experiencing love, being truly happy, and contributing to the world. So, all right, Chris, what's the three questions? All right, so what experiences do I want to have? How do I want to grow? And then how do I want to contribute? In the workshop, we would watch the video and do these and actually rework these because most people shoot really low the first time that they do these. Please, please, please do these. These are one of the single best tools I have found in my life to figure out where am I trying to go as Chris Gates. And it's so valuable to me that I have everyone on my team do this because I get to know who they are and what they're trying to achieve outside of the thing that Robinhood does to pay them for money. So really important of thing about how do you want to grow, how do you want to contribute, not just in your day job, just not in your career, but as a human on this planet. And frankly, no one ever asked me that question. Super, super valuable set of questions. So let's tie these all together. So we have a target. That target can be kind of defined by your Dharma blueprint, your Ikigai, your three most important questions, or even some standard goal setting, as long as we keep in mind ends goals versus means goals. We have a starting point. Anyone that's used Google Maps or has done land navigation knows you need to know where you are and where you're trying to go so you can shoot a path to that. Right? So our astrology, numerology, personality, the various personality assessments, Dharma archetype, your love languages, your disc, your human design, that's all who you are. That's now without mindfulness, without coaching, without understanding all the things that move us and take us in different directions, like rules, distractions, limiting beliefs, listening to other people, we go all over the place. We're not maximizing our journey, and we may not even ever reach the target. Even if we hit the target, if we're using means goals, it might not even be a good target, and we got to do this all over again. Now, once you start to add in following your highest excitement, your human design, which is how you best do it for you, understanding distractions and how beliefs can take us off course, and then just having a coach or therapist, it begins to have way less back and forth, way less wandering, and eventually we hit the target because we're not hanging out in the wrong place. So the question you want to ask yourself as it relates to that is this activity bringing me closer to how I want to grow or contribute, or is it a good time or use of my energy? Now, all that sounds great, but it's going to bring up fear and yeah, it's going to bring up fear. So how do we start to deal with that fear? How do I upgrade my spacesuit into the person and spacesuit that I want to be? How do I upgrade safely? Right. First, you got to take care of the machine because if the machine's on fire, it doesn't work too well. You got to take care of the machine. In the dock is a bunch of things that you probably heard about that I very rarely do, and most of you probably don't do as it relates to taking care of the machine. But it is a prerequisite to success and having enough power to do the other things, right? So we need to check in with our power management system. Because once we're in low power or survival mode, there isn't a lot of room left over for growth, only survival, right? And so typically that manifests itself as burnout, and we need to really understand where we are on this burnout chart. If we're on that lower row of stage 9 through 12, we have work to do because we want to ask for help before we're in super burnout mode. We don't want to ask, you definitely got to ask for help in the red and gray, but when you ask in the yellow and orange, you actually have some energy to do something about it before you're completely exhausted. And we do that via daily check-ins, spiritual DevOps, meditation, reflections, talking to coaches, talking to therapists, those sorts of things. Other things that keep us from doing that, distractions. So you have distraction moves you away from what you want, traction moves you toward what you want. And we need to start to understand and find and inspect these processes that are using up all of our resources, right? What is this random process that's consuming all of my memory? We need to see and identify that and kill those things, because our life is about managing our energetic currency. So where we place our attention is where we place our energy. So if you start to think about having a finite amount of balls or a finite amount of coins, if you're not intentionally placing them, when something important comes into your life, you don't actually have any to use. So it becomes really important to check in: what's running, what can I kill, what's not actually benefiting me, what belief is like taking all my attention, what thing is occupying all my time, turning that off, and then having energy to go into the things that we want to do, which is experiences we want to have, how we want to grow, and then how we want to contribute, right? Do we focus on strangers thinking what strangers think of us, or are we trying to create capital A art and live capital L life? Right. And so Joe Dispenza says, life is about the management of energy. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So if you've got some rogue Firefox or Chrome process consuming all your resources, we don't have energy to do the things that we want to do that are more important for us. Usually they're being consumed by things that someone else told us was important when they're really not. So the question related to that is this a good use of my energy? And it's a really important question to do the energy math of what we're spending time on. Some questions, some more thoughts on like fear of living your journey. So most people think outward success will change something within us. It doesn't if we don't know what if we want. Um, you know, your life is a divine act of creation. It's an offering to your higher power if you're cool with that. Otherwise, it's an offering to yourself. And to remember that your life is art. Learning how to follow your passion, even if it's not your day job, it will enrich your life, make everything better. And then remembering that everyone that we follow on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter that are good at something, at one point they were bad at it. So as we start to like try new things and follow our passions and do things that we are not used to doing, there's a good chance we're going to suck at it. And that's okay. It's actually normal. Brene Brown talks about the concept of fucking first times. And it just says when you start something new, you're not going to be great at it. And that's okay. Keep going. Listening to your inner voice. At some point, people usually reach a level of success where they listen to their voice, they got a level of success, they stop listening to it, and then things don't go as well as they should because they stop listening to it. What you actually want to do is listen to your gut, but then eventually get to where we are evaluating that with data. And then following your highest excitement, that's really your internal guidance system. And in the companion doc is a couple videos and exercises on how to do that. Because that's really our compass needle for you, and knowing if we're heading in the right direction or if we're off course. Because we don't actually have anything screaming at us saying we're going the wrong way. You know, we'll let it, your car will let you drive the wrong way, even if the GPS says you're going the wrong way. And then this first one has really been an important lesson in my life. My buddy Josh Rizzo gave me this one, and it is: on your deathbed, are you going to care about this thing that's causing you stress today? And that really goes back to this is a good use of my time and energy question. It's really another way of asking that. And inevitably, when I call him to complain, he asks that, and I have to go, no, it's actually not. And it allows me to reset, get me back on the right path. Mostly, I want you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Because that's where growth takes place. Every lobster that you've eaten or seen to grow has to shed its exoskeleton and get vulnerable and be in the ocean vulnerable in order to grow. And if you're allergic to shellfish or you don't like lobsters, harness your inner buffalo. The buffalo are one of the few creatures that know that the shortest path out of a storm is to walk into it, because if you walk away from it and the wind is coming with it, it's just going to keep you in the storm, where it knows if you walk through it, into it, you get through the thing faster. All right. Last couple things. Just fuck around and find out. take all of these tools, play with them. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, dump it. Just start to say, so what? So what if someone doesn't get it? So what if someone doesn't like it? They probably haven't done any of this work to figure out what they know or like. So what good and value does their opinion have? Create that capital L life, capital A art, capital A music, capital H hack, living your life intentionally in the way that you want to live it and not living it for somebody else. Stop caring what everyone else thinks. Who cares what they think? Do the things that you believe in, the things that are right for you. And that's the talk. That's I'm here. If you have questions and you're doing through the doc and you have questions, reach out to me. These are the two best ways to get a hold of me. And one more time, this is the link to the companion doc where all the resources are. And then just a reminder, um, I do this as a workshop. So if this is something that you would like to do yourself or bring to your company, just reach out to me. And rather than flying through this in 45 minutes, we'll take all the time to at least get you your initial answers at most of this stuff. All right. Thanks for the time and attention. Have a good one.